All right. Welcome to the podcast, folks. This is so fun for me to shift the energy of this show now to these interviews because I get to hang out with people that I've had a blast with at some level in the past, and I have not been able to be with them in a while. And Shannon, so glad to have you here today and get to catch up with you.
Very excited to be here. Thank you for having me, Chris. It's good to see you.
Oh, yeah, we're going to have some fun. So a little context, Shannon Lee leads Leadership Columbus. We both are in Columbus, Ohio area. Well, she isn't really now. You're out in the country, but you're still part of the suburb, or the metro area, we should say, past the suburbs. But I know that for me, when I think about you and the easiest way I could introduce you to the audience is a person who is seeking to do all they can. I was thinking about this preparing for our time. 2 words, lead and grow. When I think about you, I think about those words. How can I grow? How can I get better through this? And how can I bring leadership to it and improve it for others? And so that for me is like, gotta have Shannon on the show. That's what we want to do for folks. So you've been leading now at Leadership Columbus. How long?
About a year and 4 months. So it's still pretty new.
Yeah. And just tell us just a little bit about what Leadership Columbus is, what it seeks to accomplish. I've got more questions I'll ask about it after that, but we'll start there.
Yeah, so they're a community leadership organization, which actually doesn't explain a lot to folks unless they're actually familiar with community leadership organizations. There are iterations of organizations just like ours all over the country. And what those organizations do is they traditionally focus on civic leadership. And what that means is they educate community members around different aspects of civic life, like health and human services, public safety and justice, the economic environment of the community, quality of life, the educational system, those types of things. And up until I joined the organization, that was primarily what Leadership Columbus did as well. What the Leadership Columbus board was seeking to do when they were looking at a transition in leadership was really exploring what else could Leadership Columbus be for Columbus. They had noticed that several other leadership programs in the United States, just a few, had also expanded their programming to include not just civic leadership programming, but also programming around functional leadership skills and relational leadership skills. And so part of the reason they brought me in was I had experience with building programs that included that type of leadership programming. And so now that's how we talk about the totality of our leadership programs. And I really believe that if you're going to be a community trustee, which is what Leadership Columbus says that they pump out, are the future leadership trustees of the community, that those leaders should have prowess around community trusteeship and, they should be civically educated and be civic minded. But I do believe that they should also have functional leadership skills. They should know how to lead people. They should know how to manage folks. And they should have relational leadership skills, emotional intelligence, self-awareness. And that when you combine those 3 things, that you really have a powerhouse, a trifecta, if you will, of what it takes to be truly civically engaged. And so we started adding programs that were either already created or that we've been creating to deploy little by little into the community. And the benefit to that, rather than, there are plenty of employers that have internal programming, but the benefit of a community-based program is that, if I'm an individual at an employer, and I join a community-based leadership program, now I'm exposed to other participants that come from different industries, different teams, lots of different diversity dimensions. And I'm not just talking about race, I'm talking about just experiences, backgrounds. Now I'm not just going through a leadership program with my marketing team. I'm exposed to participants that come from different companies and different cultures within that company. And I'm going through maybe a cohort program for that, 10-month long program that has a cross section from the community, and I'm going through a growth experience with them now. And so we offer those opportunities to the community all year long.
If only we needed better civic leaders. What a thing to waste your time on. It's like, it's so powerful. The need is so huge. And you see just, I know when I started the work of actively putting myself out there, impacting leaders, especially with like mid-20s and under, these early stage CEOs, and they would be like, the word leadership doesn't mean anything to me. And I'm like, it will, I promise. And it's been fun to have 5-7 years later, them come back around and be like, oh, leadership is like everything. Yeah. And what a mission. You used the word diversity there. I think this isn't going to be a rabbit trail. This is going to weave back around. From afar, I've watched you. At least this has been what it's impressed upon me. Really seek to grow, to learn, to be aware, to be inclusive. What it looks like to not just get the facts, but put it into action. What was the impetus of that for you?
A lot of people, it's funny, a lot of people ask me that. A lot of people assume it was the George Floyd, the incident around George Floyd, that tragedy. It actually started long before that. I think what happened with George Floyd was something that caused me to be more vocal, but it was actually in advance of that, maybe 8 or 10 months before that. I was at a different organization, executive director at that organization, and we were at a retreat, and we were talking about how we can create more diversity within the organization from a participant standpoint. And for some reason, and I really can't pinpoint it, Chris, I can't say how it happened or why, something was just bubbling up in me that I now would call a moral imperative. Which is different than a responsibility or a priority. A priority and a responsibility are things that can shift, right? If you told me, hey, Shannon, these are my priorities, in 3 weeks from now or a month from now, you could shift those things based on a new priority, something that's more urgent, a responsibility. A moral imperative is something that tends to be pretty constant in your life. It's something that's deeper than that. It's something that you believe that if this is something that you don't engage in, that something, and more importantly, that someone will be detrimentally impacted if you do not take action. It's very, very deep within you, and that it's almost as if you cannot escape it. And it had been there for a long time, and I had kind of run from it because I wasn't sure how to address it. And I got honest with the board and said, I feel this tugging inside around diversity, and I don't know how to approach it. And so the only thing I know to do is just kind of clumsily approach it here and say, how can we have a more diverse program? And I was referring to a specific program that was not very diverse. And that's kind of where I started. And one of the board members, who was a Black woman, she said, before we do that, Shannon, this is what we really need to do. Each and every one of us in this room, which was the board and the staff, we need to first look at our social media streams, our LinkedIn follower list, who we're following, who's influencing us, and what they look like. Do they look like us? And she pointed to her skin. She goes, and I mean me too. Do they all look like me? And she's a DEI professional. And she said, we need to really evaluate who we listen to, who we learn from, and commit to following and listening, buying books, taking trainings from people who do not think like us, do not look like us, and do not sound like us. She goes, I mean music, art, trainings, thought leaders, authors, social media influencers. She goes, I challenge every single one of you to start doing this. My second challenge is, as you follow them on social media, as you listen, I challenge you for the next year to not make one comment on their social media, to not engage in their space at all, but to listen only. And when you hear something you don't understand, go research it and learn some more.
Wow.
And I listened to that advice and took it to heart. And what was interesting was, as you know how social media works, your algorithm starts to change as you start following people that don't, it's so easy to really homogenize what comes into your space as any person, but as a white person, so much, like, as I really interrogated what was in my social media space, my professional space on LinkedIn, I looked at my bookcase. It never occurred to me how homogenous even my leadership learning was. Every author on my bookcase was white. Every author cited in my own book that I wrote was white. And I realized how homogenous everything that I learned about leadership and about life, about psychology, about emotional intelligence was white. And as I began to learn from other people that didn't look like me, people who were Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, my world just expanded. And I was like, oh, there's so much thought leadership out there that had totally different ideas about some of these concepts. And they weren't necessarily conflicting ideas. Some of them were, but they were from perspectives that were just different and that were so much more enriching to my growth. And I learned that so many of these perspectives that I'd grown up with were incomplete. Like, there were chapters missing from the book that I was taught from because I didn't have those experiences. And now I know, like, looking back, the reason why I needed that education was because inviting people into our space, saying, we want diversity, please come to our program. Our program wasn't safe for those folks. We didn't have a program that represented those folks. We would have invited them still into a program that only represented our white experience. And so she needed us to be educated on other people's experience so that a leadership program sounded like more experiences, right? And so that is what started my journey. And so as I learned those things, I just became so passionate about all of those things. And it's lifelong, of course. And that's just where it all started. And I'm so grateful that she asked us to do that, because that just became the spark that started everything off.
Wow. I'm grateful because the influence, the impact, on me, watching you go through that, at least what you were sharing online and social media, but then also now the impact you have on the organization. I think when we go through a shift like that, there's no doubt some impact that it adds to our lives in terms of value. And I want to ask about that in a second. First, I want to ask this: what, if anything, has it cost you to go in this direction and to take this on as a moral imperative?
I think initially part of the cost was it, and I say this carefully because nobody's feeling sorry for me, and I don't want to feel sorry for me.
Thank you. Sure.
Initially, what it cost me was I needed to, there's like a breaking down, like I hate to use this term because it's so overused now, but I had to deconstruct some belief systems. And part of what I lost in that process was I deconstructed some of my faith, because I saw a lot of my faith was rooted in, unbeknownst to me at the time, white supremacy. And so that was, for a while, I perceived that as a loss. And there was some grieving I had to do, because so much of my life was based in some belief systems that once I learned what I learned, those things didn't work anymore. And I was left with like nothing. It felt like I didn't have anything to stand on. And so I feel like it cost me that. I don't feel like it's a loss anymore, but at the time it felt like a huge loss. Like, what is going on? Other losses would be things like friendships. I definitely lost friendships. People, it's amazing when you extend yourself, when you expand in care for people groups, and you actually say, these folks belong, how other folks feel threatened by that, which still boggles my mind.
Yeah.
That you're saying that certain people feel threatened by including others.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I don't understand it. The threat that folks feel like it takes nothing away from you. I don't mean you, Chris, but collectively you, like it takes nothing away from, white folks to now include more people in belonging and to celebrate other people groups and to create equity. And that is unfortunate. So it has cost friendships. The thing that I don't know is, did it cost revenue streams as far as, fundraising or things like that at my previous job? Does it cost us revenue streams at my current job? Because, we have, with our programming, we are very clear on our anti-racist stand. We don't know. No one's ever said that to us. But that's always in the back of our mind, but we don't choose a victim mentality. So we're like, this is just where we are, and we're just going to move forward. We're caring with that. We don't, we're not like a bull in a china shop or something like that, but we just move forward with, this is what we're going to do. And the way we talk about things at Leadership Columbus is, this is a learning environment, and we're trying to train people around these concepts. And so the goal isn't to just say, this is our stand and like it or leave it. That's not our attitude. Our attitude is, this is our DEI framework. This is our anti-racism framework. We want to train you and teach you around these things. We welcome pushback. We welcome questions. Let's have a conversation. And so we treat it like a learning environment, not, our way or the highway. But it did cost friendships. It did cause people to walk away from a relationship with me in friendship. And that's sad. That's heartbreaking. But I don't want that. But that is definitely a cost.
Yeah. Thank you for just the vulnerability. I feel like the articulation of that was so compelling from a permission giving standpoint and a holding a healthy center of compassion value standpoint. And I think for me, it's like, I lived in East Tennessee for 10 years. And then Arkansas, like 7, 10, I forget, whatever. I can't measure time anymore pre-COVID. I'm in my mid-40s. That's what I know. But like, I saw racism as a child and as a young adult in some of those spaces. And so all of this is kind of like come into the national conversation in a more diligent way. None of it was surprising to me, like that was there. I think what's surprising to me is just how much we forget. We can all, as humans, compare ourselves and feel insecure and think, people could say I'm not actively doing it, but I'm keeping you down because there's not enough and I need to go up. And the only way I can go up is if you go down. And how systemic that can be.
It's back to that zero-sum game, right? If there has to be a winner and a loser, it's that same attitude. And I think one of the other biggest challenges around it is, especially in like northern states, there's less overt. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but there's less overt racism. For example, in Columbus, the bigger challenges in areas like this are when you work with folks that, like, I'm not racist. I like Black people. I have a Black friend or something like that. And they don't recognize the systemic racism and how, for example, policies or procedures or how, terminology or, societal memes or things like that, and how they participate in those things. And the big one, this is the key, that when someone shares with them that a microaggression or something like that, that they've participated in it, that they take personal offense and that that's not even necessary. It'd be, and this is how someone explained it to me, that was super helpful. And it's kind of funny. If I say, hey, as a friend, if I say, hey, Chris, you've got a booger in your nose, you would go, oh my God, thank you. And you would get rid of it and move on. It's the same. That's the same thing with like racism. You go, thank you for letting me know, and stop doing it and move on. That's all you need to do. Like, thank you for explaining that to me. Yeah. That's all you have to do when a Black person says, hey, that was a microaggression, or that was not equitable, or that was white supremacist. All you have to do is say, thank you for educating me. I really appreciate that labor. I'm not going to do that again. I appreciate it. And then you move on. You don't have to be guilty. You don't have to be mad and offended. You accept it, thank, and move on. It's that simple. And then just don't do it again. But for some reason, a lot of white folks feel like they have to immediately be defensive. And then the worst part that I see, they double down. And, which makes it even worse. And so, and again, I didn't just wake up knowing this. I learned this during that year of just listening to other people that don't look like me. That's why that education is so important.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think, we have if we're honest, we have such fragile egos, right? Mm-hmm. And so if my wife corrects me on something, I'm going to double down, go down in a ball of flames, proving I'm right, rather than go, thank you. And these vulnerable moments where I have received wonderful correction and haven't done nearly the work that you've done, but the little bit where I've put myself out there and done some growth myself and received some correction on things. Yeah, it's like, okay, if I'm participating in something that is systemically harmful, I can see that as an action I did and be sorry for that, not have to carry it as an identity and I'm a racist person. So separating like the behavior from the identity has been powerful for me. And that's in all areas of my life. I mean, so I haven't been running. I got injured and I started running again. And there's this trail outside of our neighborhood and I'm running it. This was like 3 days ago, Shannon. So as much as I want to say I'm growing, this guy with, I'm trying to be polite here, but it sets up the story, a healthy dad bod. Well, you'd say an unhealthy dad bod, I guess. Healthy proportions, is running and pushing a stroller.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, pretty far behind him, but I'm like, I'm going to catch him. I'm going to get ahead of him, and just this thing in me, like a comparison, competition, scarcity. And I knew it was happening, but I was still like, I'm going to run, and I get near him because I am running faster than he is. And then he stops. Like before I could get the pleasure of passing him, he checked out of the game, and I think that if we're honest, it's this insecurity that's happening in all of us. And I've seen you lean in on that. And so I'm so glad for you to share and invite us into that. What's it been like for you, in leading Leadership Columbus? Any leadership enterprise is challenging. Any leadership shift or change can be so demanding. What's been the surprise? And I know you have to be sensitive to constituency and all that and whatever you can share, but what's been the surprise challenge that you've seen in your efforts there that you're seeking to improve something? And maybe it hasn't gone as easy as you would have liked.
I think the surprise challenge, that wasn't in your prepared questions.
Yes.
That was a surprise.
That was a surprise question.
I think the surprise challenge has been, I didn't plan to grow the staff from 2 to 5 staff members in a year. That's, I guess, a good challenge, but that has really maxed out my capacity this year.
Yeah.
And I'm really struggling with that right now. And I know it will get better. It's just a growing pain. And on top of that, so the layer with that has made it such a challenge is from a developmental standpoint, there's like 3 layers: growing the staff fast, growing the staff while adding new programs and staff that have never run those programs. So you have all this new layered in. So normally you bring people in to an established program. So at least you have a program that you know well, so you can take something that you basically have mastery level at and then train them in what you know. But for example, we have a new program called COLA. The program isn't new, it's just new to us. We folded it in from another organization. So we're learning the program as we're training a new hire to run the program. And I'm training the person to train the direct report. So there's all these layers of new. And so that's been a surprise challenge for me. I feel like everyone is rising to the challenge, but it's taking a lot of self-regulating for all of us. And fortunately, we have a lot of emotionally intelligent people on our team. And this isn't sustainable. So, after the program runs later this month, I think we're all going to need a couple of days to just take a couple of days off and relax a little bit so we can get a breather and come back refreshed. But that was something I wasn't planning on. We really thought this was not going to be this hard.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that, because I think for people listening, this is so encouraging, because it's people that want to grow something, and these aren't necessarily companies we do a lot of work with because they're just not big enough yet. But a lot of questions we'll get sometimes at different events or whatever is around this idea of getting your first team going and building that team up. And the thing that people don't think about a lot, I think you're giving an expression of this that's so honest and healthy for people to understand. When you have one or two people, you can really still advance the mission. When you have 5 or 7, just leading those people alone can be a full-time job.
It is.
I mean, that's how organizational infrastructure develops. And so that time pressure, that's some real stuff there. What for you right now, if you, and this is just learning more about where you want to advance and grow as a leader, what for you right now would you say, if I could wave a magic wand and do, 5 hours less of this, what would that be?
Administrative work.
Administrative work, yeah.
Like paper pushing. I'm a visionary, big picture. I like to plan and think, and I'm not a detail person. I have high competency in those areas because I've had to develop that competency because of different work situations. Mm-hmm. But just because someone's competent in something doesn't mean they like doing it or that it gives them life. Those things do not give me life. They make me want to stab my eye out with a dull pencil. And so if I could do 5 hours less of it, it would be like record keeping type of thing. Someone else needs to be doing that. And we will get there. Right now, it's just a necessary evil. And my board knows that. They know that we need to work towards that. But this organization has traditionally run on basically 2.5 staff. So this is the first time that I know of the organization has had 5 full-time. Well, we have 4 3/4 staff people. Next year will be 6. So, it's quite the growth for the organization. So, that would be it.
Yeah.
Do less administrative work.
Totally. And you wouldn't have as much, but the team has grown. So that element grows, and people want to be like, I should be able to just know exactly how to structure all this right now to get past it. I'm like, well, no, you wrestle through it. It's almost like there's an old teaching around this that I think is really cool. This wineskin bursts because, it's old and you have to build a new one to get new wine. So you've got to upgrade the infrastructure of your day and that it's nerdy and tedious, but I get excited about that stuff because you're shedding that old skin. You're going into the new. As you go into this new and as you're wrestling to this next level, no doubt you're taking skills you've learned up to this point. I think this is just a fun question to ask people because it has an element of health to it. But what are you leaning on to go to the next level as an organization? as a leader. And I want you to think about this like as a quality. Like, what do you like about yourself the most, Shannon? That is, something you appreciate about who you are, and it's going to help you get to the next level here.
I think what I like about myself, at least right now, is my ability to quickly shift from disappointment to opportunity. To be able to look at like an ending, a challenge, however you want to define it, like a closed door, an impossible situation, and ask myself, okay, what does this make possible now? And not get stuck in victim mode, at least not for too long. Sometimes I get even freakishly excited about those challenges. I've even had the staff look at me like, what is wrong with this person? And I really credit that to my meditation practice. And also, you mentioned ego before. Juan Alvarez, who a lot of folks know in the Columbus community, he's a meditation coach. He defines the ego as simply your mind trying to explain life to you. And, sometimes when things go wrong, immediately our ego tries to attach our identity to that, like I'm such a terrible leader, or I can't believe I got that wrong. And that's just, our identity sneaking in there and trying to explain life to us, and instead being able to shift that and detach from that disappointment, that situation, and instead move in and become quite opportunistic in a positive sense. I'll go, okay, this is happening. And to really just remain present and accept. And when I say accept, I don't mean accept the content of what's happening, because sometimes the content is not acceptable, right? Especially something really bad is happening. But what I mean is just not resisting the moment, not resisting what is, because you can't change it, right? And to move out of that resistance, I just say to myself, okay, this is happening. So what does this make possible? And I find that identifying my choices in any situation feels very empowering and helps me continue to move forward and not get stuck. Now, that doesn't mean I don't ever feel stuck, but I seem to have a pretty good knack for moving things forward when disappointment happens. So I'm proud of that, and I do like that about myself.
Oh, I love it. Thank you for the articulation. I mean, it's like that is the starting point of change. As you know, when we went through Figure That Shift Out, you get aware, you accept what is, you don't fight against it. And it's, you don't graduate the need to walk through this as a continual process.
Yeah.
You just get maybe a little quicker at, I'm upset about a problem. I get stressed, and, later that day I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm thankful that I know what the problem is. I'm thankful that, and this gratitude starts to shift within me. So I have seen that in you. That's super cool. Fired up to hear that you appreciate that about yourself. With it being something that, when we worked together a number of years ago, you went through our key program, Figure That Shift Out. I'm curious because I hear the way the message has just gone deeper in different ways into who you are as you've continued to draw from other resources, learn from yourself. What still sticks with the work that we did together? What do you still go back to, or what meant the most? Wherever you take yourself with that question.
I think I still notice when I'm proving or hiding, like that has always stuck with me. And I think specifically around that there's signals to me that really it's my authentic self that's just not being seen, that's not coming out. When I'm trying to run from something, when I'm hiding, or whenever I'm just trying to like puff up a little bit or trying to prove something, when I'm improving sometimes can come out and like defending myself, right? And sometimes even if I don't say something, if I feel that welling up, like I need to defend myself, I'll have to tell myself, you don't have to defend yourself to anybody. Like I don't have to prove anything to anybody. That it's just a reminder to me that it's just that authentic self that's trying to come out. And I remind myself, what is the real Shannon trying to do here? And just come back to that. Right. And I just think of those as just like if my car light comes on, right, it's just a signal, and just try to neutralize it at that point. It's a really great self-discovery method, right? And then also that those core fears, and really remembering that and observing it, noticing when it happens, and being compassionate when it creeps in again, recognizing it. I know this sounds weird, but like detaching it and observing it and then loving that part, not bemoaning it, but like, okay, I see you. I see what you're trying to do. You protected me at one point in my life. Like I needed that fear to protect me from something at some point. It developed for a reason. But I don't need you anymore. I'm safe now. I see what I might have needed that for, but I've outgrown, I have these new tools. And so figuring out what tool I need right now, I don't need that tool, but I need something else. And so, now I'm making it sound like I do that every time. And it's so simple. So I don't want the listeners to think it works like that, because it doesn't. But like you just said a few moments ago, the SightShift program, if you practice the principles, it truly, truly does. And I'm not just saying that because I'm sitting here today. I really do believe that as you practice the principles, that you do shorten the gap between the when you are aware of it and like, not doing it anymore, not succumbing to the fear, if you will. And that space between the rumination and the proving and hiding and all of that muck that you get stuck in, that does severely change for your good as you practice those concepts. And I really think the other one would be around the flip or shifting your mindset. What I love about that model is that while there are tons of models out there around like changing your mindset or making a shift, whether it be in psychology, like, cognitive behavioral therapy or something like that. A lot of those models are not accessible to everybody. They're not easily understood. Some of them are really complicated. And to me, the model that you present, not only is it accessible and understandable, but for me at least, going through the program, it was contextualized for my leadership and contextualized for what I was going through at the time. And I can only assume that that's still the way that it's delivered. And so wherever you are, in your leadership journey, you can take that model. So it's not just for like, if I'm the CEO or I'm a director or whatever I'm doing, I can use this model wherever I am right now in that journey, which is really useful. So it's not like it's a specific thing that's only good for one area or one place. It's something that can be contextualized no matter what. So, which is really good, because no two leaders are having, the same experience at the same time. And yet we're all having very similar challenges, I guess. So to me, that's the power of that model of making that shift.
Yeah. So encouraging. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, there was things you were putting to words there that I'm like, oh, I need to remember to explain it that way, and tell our coaches to explain it that way. That was fantastic. We all are having our own unique experience, and like you said perfectly, we're all facing these same challenges in a lot of ways. I know you have your finger on the pulse of things and where things are at from a leadership standpoint. What do you think, if you were to be able to encourage some leaders, just say, here's what people really need to know right now? Maybe this is for people to hear from you that are leading others, or they're just out there. They don't really have a lot of responsibility in leading others, but they interact with people. What would be something you would tell them that you think they could hear and be encouraged by in these crazy times?
I think if leaders are listening right now, I was just talking to one of our board members today. I had lunch with him, and we were talking about the importance of, I don't want to overuse this word because I just used it 2 times, but contextualizing your policies and the way you show up for your folks. So, for example, if you have a policy, this is going to be really granular, but I'll make it broader in a second. If you have a policy around, reimbursements or something like that, think about the fact that, inflation was 9.1% and people are paying $5 a gallon for gas. Don't nickel and dime people right now. You have your rules and your guidelines, and think about what people are facing right now. Think about how you can offer some extra PTO. Think about how you can check in with people more. If you can't offer extras financially, think about how you can ask them more how they're doing. Check in with people. People are, in general, not everyone is doing okay right now from an emotional standpoint. And I'm not just talking about COVID. There are a lot of struggles right now, no matter where you are on the political spectrum. There are a lot of folks struggling with some decisions that have been happening from a federal standpoint. There are folks that are struggling on both sides of the fence. And you don't have to go into the specifics around that if you don't feel comfortable. And obviously in the workplace, sometimes that's a challenging thing to do. People are really, they're fried. They're really crispy, as you say, and a little just checking in on them goes a long way. I think from a leadership perspective, even if you're not the kind of leader that, someone say, well, I'm not touchy-feely. I don't think it requires you to be touchy-feely to really connect meaningfully to people. Other practical ways you can connect meaningfully for folks that, even if you're not a touchy-feely, would be to have just regular check-ins with folks and just ask them things like, hey, what's something you're celebrating professionally right now? You don't even have to ask them about their personal life, but just have a touch point with your folks every week and ask them, what are you celebrating? What's a challenge you're facing? Is there anything I can help you with that challenge? They will appreciate that touch point without you even talking about their personal life. People sometimes just want to know that you care. And I know that sounds almost too simplistic. You'd be amazed at how far that goes. And then the third thing that I'll mention, and the only reason why I know this is so important is because I do training after training after training of folks that work for leaders that say their leaders don't give them this. And that is, tell people the rationale when you make decisions. I would say 90% of the folks in our early manager program so they want to be a manager for the first time. And we talked to them about this, about sharing the rationale. And they're all like, we never have our leaders tell us why we're doing things, why decisions are made. And this is key to alignment, right? Align people to a higher purpose or, to the mission of the organization or even to the team, like the organization's like goals or aspirations for the year. And when I say to the group, how many of you have tasks and goals right now that you're working on and you have no idea how they are tied to the organization's quarterly or annual goals? Almost every hand goes up. They have no idea why they are working on what they're working on. No idea. Because nobody in leadership gives them rationale. And I know these are uber specific, but you'd be amazed at how far those things go. Tell people why they're doing stuff.
I love it. I mean, being in the spot where I'm coaching the person that isn't giving that rationale, we have a template. Logic, motives, tested action. The logic, the motives, how it's been tested and proven, even if it's a new thing, how would it show up in another category, and then the exact action. But it's like everybody's lives are on fire.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not being like Chicken Little about it, but everyone is like clawing for margin. And I think that has gone out the window. So super incredible clarity and helpful for people to advance.
Well, I have 2 big picture things that I want to share.
Do it.
The two big picture ones for leader. So those are like uber granular, but the two big picture ones for leaders I would share would be, number one, commit to doing your own inner work. Your inner environment, whether you think so or not, like if you're suffering, if you are having a bad experience as a leader, whether it's SightShift, I hope you do SightShift, but if it's not, do something to improve your experience as a leader. Because I don't care what your actions are, what you experience as a leader spills into the lives of the people that you're leading, and it is affecting them negatively. You cannot hide that stuff.
Yeah.
The second thing, go learn from Black, Indigenous, and other people of color and say nothing. Just go learn and do it for the next year if you aren't already doing it. Just go learn, buy their books, take their classes, follow their Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook accounts, and just learn from their thought leadership, learn about their experience, and that's all you need to do. You'll figure out the rest.
Thank you. I love it. The moral imperative. You're letting it overflow out of you. Well, so, weirdly, SightShift, we connect with people from Finland to New Zealand to whatever different parts of the world and
So cool.
in the States here. So I'd love for people to have a way to connect with you other than Leadership Columbus. Is there a way that they can find out about your book or something you can tell us? And then also tell us where, especially for Columbus listeners, if they wanted to put some of their leaders through Leadership Columbus or connect with you there, where to go. So 2 places to take us.
Yeah. So I do have a book called Servant Leader Mindset, and it is about servant leadership, but it really focuses on the inner part of servant leadership. That is my passion, by the way. It's really just mindsets, because I do believe the inner life of the leader is what affects leadership the most. And it focuses on 5 mindsets of servant leaders. And that's on Amazon. Just look up Servant Leader Mindset, Shannon Lee, and you'll find it. And I can send you a link if that's helpful to post.
Cool.
And then for Leadership Columbus, leadershipcolumbus.org. And if you go to the programs tab, currently we are signing folks up for 2 programs. One is Next Gen. Next Gen is the program I mentioned that's for early managers or those who are desirous of their first management experience. This focuses on management competencies and emotional intelligence. So this is not the civic-oriented program. That's called the Signature Program. That one's already in motion right now. And then Exec Gen. So if you think of Next Gen and Exec Gen as like bookends, Exec Gen is at the other end. That one is for very experienced leaders who have 20 plus years supervisory experience. That one is also leadership competencies and emotional intelligence, but that one is more around, leading organizations and teams, and really focusing on things like change agility, strategic planning, trauma-informed leadership, those types of things. So much more.
Awesome.
Next. Yeah.
Perfect. I think for people in Columbus, to hear that as a resource, you can hear how Shannon describes it. A, she's passionate and knows it, but B, there's something there for you to get to take a next step with. Because the weird part about how episodes work like this, some of the most listened to episodes are from 2015, like recent. So people, you never know when people are listening to an episode. It might sync up with some of the promotion that's happening, but they can go to leadershipcolumbus.org. So that's great. Shannon, you brought your heart. You brought your impact. You opened with this passion for diversity, closing with this passion for mindset. I feel like that expresses so much of who you are. What a joy to have you. Thank you for being on the show, and can't wait to share this episode.
Thank you so much.